Hey there, Goo Crew. I hope you're excited for an awesome. Oh, hi, Magda.
Mhm. Hey, hey, hey. Mhm.
Hey, both of you guys, right on time. So,
Cheers.
hang on. I got a cooler right by my computer.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Sharing you, cheersing you two here. So, let me just get in with the intro here. So, hey, Goo Crew, another Yakkin with Yuri session as we lead into the iconic Western States 2021 run. I am here with two legends, two veterans of Western States, folks that I get to call friends, co-workers, people that I have the utmost admiration and respect for as people and athletes. And we have an hour of their time tonight to chat about Western States, and their nutrition plans, their training, and everything in between. Maybe you'll learn some new things tonight. Maybe some of you don't even know that Patrick is actually coached by Magda and has served as his mentor for years. So if you have any questions, you can throw them in the comments. I will do my best to grab them. A few folks left comments and questions on our IG post. But let me jump right into this. Before I get into the intros, though, I need to announce, and maybe Magda, you might want to chime in on this since you're the chef in the kitchen on this one. But we are going to be making a new Roctane Endurance Energy Gel in celebration of our new sponsorship, I guess, right? We're coming back to Western States, an event that's sort of been at the foundation of our core as a company. We are the exclusive performance nutrition sponsor of Western States this year, and we all know that it's going to be hot and dusty and dry. And so we have 5 flavors that people can vote on up until June 30th. Magda, maybe just say a little bit about this, and then I'll go back to my intro.
No, I think you definitely nailed it in terms of, it's a flavor that is inspired by the conditions at Western States. So we're looking at flavor that can complement those hot environments, which are pretty challenging. And we're really excited about the 5 options that we have to offer. And we're really looking forward to what comes on top. And I have my favorite, but I definitely am paying attention to what athletes are submitting, and it's been fun.
Yeah. I know the flavors are super tasty. So for those of you who haven't visited our site, the link lives in the IG bio if you want to go there and vote. It's also on our website. But the 5 flavors are blood orange lemonade, watermelon lime, raspberry lemon, salted lime, like our chews, and strawberry hibiscus, like our relatively new Roctane Energy drink. All super tasty, all fruit forward, obviously, which is kind of, we can talk about this later, where all of our palates tend to go when it gets hot and dusty and dry, and you can't do the chocolates or the salted caramels or the espressos or something like that anymore. But we can jump into that later. So let me introduce these two amazing folks. So Magda, you won the 2002 San Francisco Marathon. In 2008, you were an Olympian. You have 2 bronze medals at the IAAF World Cross Country Championships. In 2015, you won Western States, all on Summit Tea Roctane Energy Drink, which we can talk about later. And then in 2019, you won the Leadville 100. She is also a mom and a master chef.
That's true. I will vouch for the master chef and the
And
mom.
And the mom and the master chef, for sure. I mean, it makes sense, right, that you're also, our head of innovation, head of R&D, back there in the lab, just chefing up some amazing new flavors and concoctions for folks to try to help be their personal best athletes. Patrick, so you have 2 NCAA Division II cross country All-American like titles or accolades to your palmares. In 2016, you had a breakout year. You were 3rd at the Ultra Vasan 90K in Sweden. You were 3rd at the IAV 100K World Championships in Spain. And then you also have 3 back-to-back-to-back Javelina 100 wins, setting the course record. I think it still holds in 2017, which was actually your first year. Go figure. Your first year, you come out of the gate and set the course record, and it still stands. And in 2019, you did your very first Western States, and you finished 8th, I believe, in somewhat of a sprint, maybe on the track. Maybe we'll circle back to that when we start talking about
yeah, something like that.
right. Well, we could circle back to that. And I also want to mention that most people may not know that you are also in a jug band.
I do a little of that, yeah. Both current and back in 2010, 11. I really love the blues and jug band music from pre-World War II. So
yeah. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention you are both Hoka athletes, and so it's awesome to have you on here. For those that don't know, I'm the elite athlete manager at Goo Energy Labs, so I get to call Patrick a friend and somebody that I work closely with. And although I am not a runner, I have a deep appreciation for what these two do out there over 100 miles or whatever distance that they are running. So let's jump right into this. And because let's do this. I'm fired up. Because you two work so closely together, let's talk a little bit about how your training's been going. I'm assuming you're both in sort of your taper period now. But maybe let's start first. I want to ask you, Patrick, how did you get connected with Magda to work as a coach? Because you also coach athletes.
Yeah, so me and Magda first started working together in the approach to Western States in 2019, which was awesome. I had followed her career for years, and we'd met shortly before that because I was a Goo athlete, and I'd visited California a few times to come hang out with you all and see production and see everything awesome that goes into the nutrition that we use. And I'd say that we hit it off. I had thought of Magda as a person that I'd admired both in terms of the things she'd accomplished as an athlete, but even more so as a person and how she interacted with our running community. So I thought, what a great fit to work with me directly. And we worked very directly together leading into the 2019 Western States. And since then, she's just been a great mentor for me and introduced me, to some other people like Ian Sharman that has been a great mentor as well. And I feel like I look to those two for all things running. So Magda's been an awesome friend and mentor along the way.
Yeah, and I think if I may just add to that, both of us have some coaching experience, and we do realize that that having a mentor on the side is important. That self-coaching might not be the best formula for yourself. Just like Patrick mentioned, I also have a mentor, and Ian Sherman is that person for me as well. So yeah, it's just we, like Patrick said, we hit it off right away. But I was really intrigued by the fact that Patrick wanted to do Western States and was coming off, Flatlander, coming into the canyons, and that was kind of a challenge, for both of us to solve, and that was really exciting. And just preparing for that type of a race from where he was coming from was really cool.
I love this whole idea of both of you having mentors, right? And then sort of, paying it forward, like sharing your knowledge with the next generation. Patrick, you do that through your coaching. Magda, you're currently doing that now through Magda. It's great to be able to give that gift to people. Let's talk real quickly for those that don't know the geography of Javelina versus the geography of a Western state. Patrick, walk our audience through that real quickly because they might be surprised.
Yeah, so Javelina 100, which has kind of been my go-to race, and other races like it, even flatter than Javelina for 100 miles, have been kind of my staple races, the ones that I think I have the best skill set for, either because they're extremely high heat, desert style races like Javelina, or because they're really flat, like a race like Brazos Bend, which has, don't get me wrong here, 800 feet of elevation gain over the course of 100 miles. So I like very flat races, and that's kind of my background, right? Road ultras, like 10 by 10K road. But getting back to Javelina, it's a desert race, so it's in the Sonoran Desert. It's very exposed. You have only 8,000 feet of elevation gain and elevation loss over the course of 100 miles. So it feels more like a rolling cross-country course, but on sand. Some sections are deeper washes, and other sections are more like what you would expect from a rail trail if you're from the East Coast. Tearing up the railway lines and throwing down like a gravel path. So comparatively, Western States has so much climbing, and even more descending, right? You also have the factor of, although the races may have some similarities in terms of heat, the Western States course, given the year we're about to experience with low 100-degree weather, they do have similar temperature, but I would say that the canyons will feel even a little bit more like being in a dryer and running than Javelina, where you are exposed. You'll have more vegetation on the Western States course. So there are pockets that are going to feel somewhat humid, but very hot. The races are similar because they're 100 miles, and they're very hot races, but they're very different because Javelina is very fast. Western, you must hike. There are factors that are just very different.
What is the total elevation for somebody who doesn't know, or a guesstimate on Western States?
Magda, would you like to go? Yeah, 18,000.
18,000, yeah.
Yeah, and 24,000 down. So
that's and we're going to circle back to that, because when I talked with Tim and Keely last week, they talked about how it's the descents that are the killers on your quads,
especially early in a race.
Yeah, that those are what really break down your quads. But we'll circle back to all that because there's just so much here to talk about. But give us a little snapshot, Magda, of like the past 3 months of what does your training look like? Because obviously 2020 was a year that there was nothing normal about it. So what does the past few months look like for you as you're training to get ready for Western States?
Yeah, so I would say that, this entire year for me has been a little bit up and down. It has not been probably the most successful approach to Western States I've had. This is my 4th time lining up. I've had 1 DNF, 1 win, and 1 second, and they were all different preparation. And to say the least, this one was a little bit of a doozy in terms of consistency. I think I've been definitely, I hit some obstacles along the way during this preparation, but some of the key sessions, that I continue to rely on that make me feel confident that I can toe the line have been there. And some of those, sessions are, working on the descending, meaning like getting your quads strong. So on a regular basis, it's not just the downhill running that I try to incorporate, but actually like, jumping off a box and doing jumping off the box to really load the quads. So a lot of that type of work, along with climbing and descending, and then lately just spending more time in the heat, which is something that I personally don't enjoy running in, but know the importance of preparing yourself for a heat and actually falling in love by race day with heat. I know it's strange, but coming from the Bay Area, it's actually in June, it's really challenging to and you have to be prepared for high temperatures, right? It's ideal. Like the San Francisco weather in the summer is, nice in 40s and 50s in the morning, and the same at night. And you really have to get creative to find opportunities to prepare for heat. So that is something that's really top of mind for me leading up to this race, and finding ways to prepare. And I feel like, I've got the key ingredients right now, and just putting, just kind of final touches on the preparation.
Yeah, I recently saw you went out to Diablo to find that heat. As part of your preparation, which is, for folks who don't know, which is just over the hill from Berkeley and tends to be 20 to 30 degrees hotter.
Warmer.
Yeah. So yeah.
It's definitely. I mean, you have to get creative, and that's, you can be as physically prepared in terms of your fitness, but if you don't have the heat training, and you're trying to tackle some of the parts of the canyons that are in the middle of the race, it's it gets tough.
Yeah. So Patrick, you come from Savannah, Georgia, so I know you're acclimated to heat, but it's a humid heat. So do you do any different sort of acclimatizing to prepare for this kind of heat, a drier heat out here, or are you just better equipped to deal with that because of where you live and train most of the year?
Yeah, it's a good question. I always feel like maybe 80 degrees out your way feels like, I would say 100 degrees out your way feels more like 80 here because the humidity is so brutal and so tough. That's a big factor in my final preparations of training for a race out west. If I'm coming off the summer months in Georgia in the final legs, I always psych myself out a little bit because I walk out the door and I say, wow, this is 95. What's it going to feel like if it's 110 in the canyons? But what I have to always realize is it's talking myself off that edge of remembering that 80 here feels like 100 on the Western States course. So in terms of preparing, the best thing for me to do is just to go run out the door at about 3 p.m. Today was about 114 degree heat index, so that was one of my final heat kind of training runs. It's probably more similar to Badwater than it is Western States, so it's excessive heat here. I don't have a lot of the factors that Magda has right out my door, though, in terms of elevation gain and loss. So for me, that's the more challenging part. And Magda has taught me over the years some tricks of the trade to get ready for that.
Yeah. Quick question for both of you. Looking a couple months back at your training, obviously I don't think you guys, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, ever run 100 miles, right, as part of your preparation for an event like this. I know when I did 24-hour solo racing, I would never go out like months before and ride for 24 hours. But what are some of the longer runs you guys do leading up to an event like a Western States, just to give folks a perspective? Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, sure. So for me, one of the most important weekends is a Western States training camp weekend of some sort. Approaching any 100, and this will be my 9th 100. So I always like to do about a 50K type effort about 6 weeks out from the race, and then my last 50K type effort about 4 weeks out from the race. But the unique thing approaching Western States is the organization always hosts a training camp weekend. So you're able to cover about an average of 25 miles to a marathon over the course of 3 days in a row. And I really like doing that on the course, especially. Having a chance to run from mile 30 to the finish line is very nice. I think the important thing after a phase of training like that, 5 or 6 weeks out, though, is to make sure that you take a down week before you load up your final phase of training and then a taper. For me, I've always found success running about a 50-mile or 100K race about 10 weeks out from an important 100-miler, then loading up those consistent 30-mile runs on a regular basis. I probably more than Magda like going out for a 50K all the time, but I'm doing it on really flat, really hot terrain, as opposed to if I was out west, a 50K run's probably equivalent to like a 22 or 23-mile run for Magda.
Of course, this is coming from the dude that loves to stack 100-mile runs like really close to each other. So I know you, bro. I know you.
Yeah, I sure do. I sure do. Especially 6 or 8 weeks. I like testing the waters to see can I nail 200s within 6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And Magda usually shakes her head at it like, why?
Don't try that at home, folks. Magda, what about you? What do you do mileage-wise?
Traditionally, I love putting a 50-mile or 100K in preparation for Western States. So this year, that didn't happen. However, just you can do it, on your own, right? So it's maybe not as much fun as signing up for a race and being with other people. But I too, enjoy about 6 weeks or 8 weeks out having a longer run. So for me, this year was close to 40 miles, with about 8,000 feet of vert, and finishing at top of Mount Diablo, which was a fun run with a friend who is also training for first Western States. And just like Patrick said, that volume of a training camp weekend, whether you go to Western States and do it on the cars or do it yourself, but having a weekend where you can just go back to back to back and kind of simulate that kind of fatigue on your legs and really recover from that. It's a boost in fitness. And I'm also a big fan of doing back to back kind of medium long runs. So maybe not a 30-mile run, but doing, a couple 20s. And usually in the beginning of my preparation, I might start with a double that looks like 20 and 15, and then it moves up to 20 and 20. Maybe it's 21 and 15, and playing around with actually doing the longer run first, and then coming back. So it's really just prepping your body to manage fatigue, and also taking an opportunity to really, train your gut and nutrition during those long runs.
Sure. Yeah, the other thing, and I think we would all agree, is recovery is so important. Recovery has to be part of everyone's plan when you're preparing for something like this. And what you just said, Magda, really resonates when folks ask me about preparing for a 200-mile ride or something like that, but have day jobs, right? I talk about stacking their workouts like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like if you can jam your hours in there, that's going to put a lot of strain, stress on your body, and then have some good recovery after that. Then you're going to make some big gains for sure. Right. So let's jump into 2021 Western States a little bit. I know for me, I towed the line last weekend, 2 weekends ago in Kansas with the Gravel family.
Congrats.
And how amazing and energizing that was for me. I'm wondering if you guys can share what it's going to be like as two veterans, as two, really well-respected runners in the ultra community. Like, what are you looking forward to on the 26th when you come to that line? I'm going to start with you, Magda. I'm going to start with you.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. I'm looking forward to all the hugs.
Right?
Totally. It's been a long time. And I truly, the reason I'm still in the sport is because of the people. It's the people that are key to doing this day after day after day and getting out there and setting goals. And I haven't seen Patrick in a year and a half. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? And so many other people. And I think that's going to be kind of, a year to celebrate that. And that is what I'm looking forward the most. I think to that suffering together. Let's go out there and it's not going to be easy, but that's why we do it. But it's more fun when you do it together.
For sure. Patrick, same question.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree that seeing folks I haven't seen in a really long time is going to be really nice. I've had a chance to connect with kind of my road ultra community in April at USA's for the first time, and this is an even bigger event in terms of number of people I'm looking forward to seeing. So that alone is going to be really great. But something special does happen when the gun goes off, right? And you get to power hike out of Olympic Valley, get up to Escarpment, look back, see the sun rising, how beautiful it is up there. That's one of my best memories from 2019 is doing that with my good friend Chris Brown. And then you've got 96 miles to go, and it's beautiful single track. And for me,
all downhill.
Yes, all downhill.
All downhill. I live for that in a lot of ways. For me, it's not even as much the process of training anymore as it is the treat of running 100 miles. Because I deeply love this distance, this specific distance, and you don't get to run them that often. So there's a lot of history on this trail, and I think that no one performance could encapsulate what the Western States organization, the history of this race means. So let the course, like if you're running or if you're crewing or if you're out there, let it humble you and remind your runner that this event has so much history, and they just need to lean into it and experience and live in the moment. I'm just looking forward to living in the moment, whether it's a 23 and a half hour finish or a 16-hour finish, right? Like either way, it's going to be very special. So
yeah, those are words to live by. Live in the moment, take it in. I mean, much like my experience in Kansas, this is the family reunion that you guys you missed last year, right? You're
Yeah.
going to get back together with the Ultra family, and you guys are going to celebrate everyone. And like you said, you need to be present for those moments, the highs and the lows that you're all going to experience.
Right.
So next question. What advantages do you think you two have as veterans? Like if you had to pick one advantage looking at, the Western States event this year, what would it be? And I'll start with you, Patrick.
Well, sorry, I cut out one more time, Yuri. Sorry,
What
buddy.
advantage, as a veteran, what advantage do you have going
Okay.
into 2021? If you had to pick one, do you think?
Well, I'm a super geek about the 100-mile distance, and since my last Western States, I've had a chance to run 5 more 100-mile races. So, in a way, I'm kind of licking my chops about to gather the wool from last time. The things I learned about maybe, going out slightly harder, coming through Devil's Thumb, just a notch up, hitting the gas pedal a little earlier. And just the moments last time around, and from my training camps on the course, kind of learning what my skill set on this course is. The first time, I felt like me and Magda were just like rattling the Yahtzee cup and like, let's roll the dice and see what happens. Did like the weight vest training work.
Yeah.
But this time, I'm looking forward to power hiking all of Devil's Thumb, power hiking all of those little things you learn about this course in particular. When you should run, when you should hike, and when you can really hit the gas and be confident about it. I'm also looking forward to, if there's some struggle, and I've got 20 miles to go, hey, I'm still getting to the finish line. That's okay, I think as an ultra athlete, and I know you can relate, Yuri, over the years, the result, I think, becomes the final result. The number becomes far less important, and leaning into the experience becomes way more. So I think if I could tell anyone that was running their first 100-miler at Western States, lean into the experience no matter what it is. That's the skill that I'm looking forward to applying. So.
Yeah, those are really wise words. Magda, what about you? What's your advantage, do you think?
I think it's similar in terms of experience. Like I've done, I've done this course 3 times, and I can say that I've had every type of a race there. I've had a race where I went off the course and had to deal with, with kind of that anxiety and anger of, wow, this is my first 100-mile race and I'm going to run more than 100 miles. And, getting back and just, being really mindful about, how to come back from a moment where you realize you've made a mistake, but also just knowing how to prepare for the heat, how to prepare for, for the downhills. Those are all learnings that you gain. Something that I didn't have the first year, right? It's that bliss of being ignorant. And, I kind of, I think that's an advantage too, but I don't have that anymore, or we don't have that anymore. So we really have to pay attention, to the learnings that we have taken away from some of the races that we have done. And, I really think that that's something that, that I continue to gather as as my tools year over year, being patient, being confident in running your own race. Something that when I was younger, I was not as confident as, I knew that that's what I had to do, but actually the intention versus action sometimes didn't match. I'm a lot more confident in taking those actions and really following the plan.
Yeah,
these
well
are
said.
such wise words. I don't know if you guys are seeing the comments coming through, but people are really, this is resonating with folks. So thank you for sharing your time with me. So one of obviously the 2 big questions that seem to come up around Western States and that I've seen on our feed that folks are asking are obviously, how do you manage the heat and what is your nutrition plan? Both very deep topics. So why don't we dive into the nutrition part first? Magda, I will share, right, in 2015, you won purely on liquid calories. For those that don't know, we had just, I think, come out with our Roctane Summit Tea drink, which can be used hot or cold, which was sort of the idea behind that drink. but you completed and won that year purely on liquid calories. So maybe we'll start with you.
Right.
What does your nutrition plan look like for the 2021 Western States?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that I saw a question come through, which I think it's really important to kind of set the context that not every race, has the same recipe for fueling, right? And
Exactly.
it shouldn't, because they all have different challenges, right? So it's not like, just like your physical preparation, you want to make sure there's specificity to training for downhill races, for a lot of climbing or power hiking. Same with nutrition, right? So first is kind of evaluating the problem that you're solving for. And at Western States, heat is an additional stress that you have to manage. So you can be really, really fit, but if you don't manage the heat, guess what? Your nutritional plan might also, fall apart. So I was very intentional about using liquid calories for and fueling, because it's more than just calories in a Ractane drink. But it was from the flavor, it was from all the performance ingredients that are in it, in addition to carbs. But it's also formulated exactly for how much I needed per hour, and then I would supplement it with water in addition to that, depending on you sweat more than just 21 ounces of fluid per hour in conditions like Western States. So it was really intentional. The flavor was mild. Drinking iced tea is really refreshing. It was always on ice, and I really stuck to the plan, and I practiced that leading up to Western States. Now, if I were in a situation where I was racing something like UTMB, where it's at night, I crave a lot more, solid food, and I like to chew on stuff. But when you're racing in over 100 degrees, you need to cool yourself off, right? So you are trying to, not only is your blood flow being redirected to cool yourself off, away from the gut, away from the digestion. So what is my recipe that I can practice that puts the least amount of demand on my digestive system, right? And drinking, you're thirsty anyway, right? And I'm getting my carbs in it, my electrolytes in it, my amino acids in it to protect, the muscle breakdown, especially, on a course like Western States. So it was a perfect recipe that works for me. And I wouldn't do that at races like UTMB. So let's be clear.
Yeah.
And I also don't have an issue as an athlete for 20 hours drinking that and having GI distress, where other people might get bored, right? They're like, well, I get hungry when I drink only. I practiced that, and I didn't have that issue. The only issue that I had is that I was sucking on a water bottle so much that actually my gums were a little sore afterwards. Not during, but afterwards,
Yeah.
which you don't really think about it. But when you constantly just, sucking on a water bottle, it's after 20 hours,
Yeah.
you have other problems. But I'll take that over GI distress that puts me at an aid station. I can't leave, the aid station for an hour, right?
Exactly.
So you got to make some choices.
Yeah. And for folks that don't know, I just want to say two things. There's 250 calories per bottle in a bottle of Roctane. So if folks are trying to do the math on like how many calories Magda's taking in per hour, I also want to emphasize, and I think both of you two would agree, that what works for Magda, what works for Patrick nutritionally, what works for me nutritionally may not work for you. So like she was saying, you need to train your gut with what you think the fuels
Right.
you're going to be putting in your system. Super important to train your gut and use the fuels you think you're going to use. Patrick, share some secrets about your nutrition plan for Western States.
Yeah, so I alter the medium of calories, meaning the source of calorie, a lot throughout 100-mile races so that I don't get sick of any one particular flavor or sick of any one particular type of food. I especially use GU Roctane products for an event like Western States because of the demands of the course, the energy expenditure on top of the crazy weather. the product has a particular number of branched chain amino acids and electrolytes that I know Magda has calculated will work well for this race. So the Roctane line in particular, I really lean on it for an event of these kind of demands. I tend to be a numbers guy when it comes to working with the parameters of this course. I like to get started with about 325 calories in my first hour, and then 400 calories an hour every hour after that. At least 300 an hour are from goo product, and then the other 100 are from a mixture of watermelon and potato chips. I really like the more baked style potato chips, especially Pringles.
Hey Magda, maybe we should have had a sixth flavor: watermelon and potato chips.
Together.
Yeah. Sorry,
which is a perfect hybrid, you know. Yeah. So when you're jamming your Pringles, you can take a little watermelon on top of it and break them down so they're palatable. I've really leaned into adding a little bit more whole foods. And the nice thing about a Pringle or a chip like it is it meshes pretty well with the Roctane line because it's a maltodextrin-based chip, and the Roctane line is. So I've really trained my gut to work specifically with goo products. On top of all of the calories from goo Roctane line, I definitely take some supplemental capsules as well. I'm a big believer in the branched chain amino acid line that goo offers. So I take about 5 of those an hour. And as some insurance, I take an additional electrolyte capsule on the goo line per hour as well, the Roctane line. So throughout the day, my best advice is for you to really have 3 or 4 plans for when you see your crew. Gels aren't really working for me right now, but I think stroopwafels would work very well. I'm having trouble with very sweet, so maybe gravitate a bit more to like Summit Tea, which is a bit more savory, right? The hotter it is, the less viscous I want my calories to be. So I'm on board with Magda in believing that this year is going to be a Roctane sports drink kind of year at Western States. I wouldn't be surprised if, other than a few stroopwafels, I did Roctane sports drink wire to wire and a lot of fruit and chips.
Yeah, that's interesting. Before somebody I Run for My Girls had a specific question for you around nutrition, but before I jump into that, 400, I mean, from my understanding, is on the high end, right? I mean, and Magda, maybe you could chime in on this. That's on the high end of calorie intake per hour. You know, most folks, it seems like, are in the 200 to 350, but
absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And, you know, I bet Patrick didn't start with 400 calories, that it was years to build up to that. And that's part of the gut training that you do. And it's incremental, just adding on top of it. And 400 is kind of the, you know, that's pushing the higher end. And it really matters what the 400 calories, what type of carbohydrates it's derived from, right? Sure. So again, we do focus on combination of carbs to allow for that maximum absorption of, you know, that, but you still have to train for it. Not only that, but when your timing of those calories coming in is really important. So the faster you go, the less you can process of that. So really think about like, okay, I'm going to be climbing right now. So I'm power hiking, it's different type of stress. I'm not pushing high intensity, like bombing down a hill. This is my opportunity to take a little bit more. So I also, in addition to my, 250 calories that I drink, occasionally I'll have like, a gel to supplement that extra 100 calories on those sections where I'm not working as hard, because now I have a little bit more blood flow to process that extra, percent that really does matter. And it could, if you do take in too much, you're going to end up on a sideline puking and shutting down your gut. So it's really impressive. Usually with cyclists that don't have a lot of jarring and they're sitting, they can push that 400. For runners, that is a challenge to get up to 400. And it's, I've always been really impressed with, Patrick's gut.
So I will also say, Yuri, to highlight on Magda's point, that the higher the intensity, the faster the running pace, the more difficult. I've had problems with that plan as well, where I had to pivot back to 300 to make sure um, all sorts of indigestion didn't occur, or I lost 500 calories because I tried to eat too much. And the most recent happening at USA is in April. I just had the calorie plan a little too high. It was about 390, per hour average, and I had to pivot back to about 3 or 310. And I found that running at that 7-minute pace or so was much easier when I pivoted back, right?
Yeah.
On a course like this, I find that when I'm hiking a lot, I want to get in those solid foods like stroopwafels too. So maybe on the 30-minute climb up to Devil's Thumb, that's a good time for you to eat a stroopwafel, maybe a stroopwafel and a half. If you feel like I'm a little behind on calories or I think I could bank them here, all of your hikes are really good spots to introduce some other mediums of calories.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Those are all really awesome tips to share with folks to figure out the timing of their nutrition. It's super key. Speaking, I want to circle back to somebody left a specific question for you, Patrick. I think you may know this person. I run for my girls. Was somebody who left a comment for you?
Yeah, this is my friend Barry. I coach Barry. So he's preparing for the Lead Man. He's doing the entire Lead Man this year.
There you go.
Pretty cool.
Go, Barry. So this may be a little bit of an inside jab at you. It says alternate nutrition plan if primary isn't working. And then he says asking for a friend.
Stroopwafels, coconut water, and lots of Pringles. I ate something like 3,000 calories of Pringles in the final 50 miles at my most recent 100. And it was working so well. I could go back and forth between that salty and sweet. And we were just finding that coconut water was kind of soothing the gut and sitting really well. It was in Las Vegas in April, so Barry was there crewing me. And we shifted, we pivoted. I ran 100 miles on a 1.17 mile course. So it was 85 loops.
Oh my
gosh. And we were able to pivot because there were 4 or 5 gas stations around the park, and they could just go and grab coconut water or whatever we needed. So, yeah, interesting. Be prepared for anything. I think that's a good lesson of like have a A, B, and C plan, maybe even a D for what if you can't ingest Rocktoon sports drink anymore. What if your system's calling to choose something? Have your stroopwafels as backup, right? So we used every stroopwafel we had in Las Vegas that weekend. That's for sure.
That's funny. Sounds like you and I might need to talk to Pringles. Hook you up with a little bit of a sponsorship, maybe.
Maybe a watermelon flavored Pringle.
Yeah, there we go.
Goo collab.
Yeah. So while we've been chatting about nutrition, there's been a whole bunch of different questions coming in, and they revolve around your timing or use of caffeine, sort of the different form factors that you guys use. So I'm wondering, Magda, maybe we'll circle back to you about caffeine. What is your approach to caffeine? How often? Do you time it? Do you use it throughout? Go ahead.
Right. So, great question. And again, it really depends on, on the race and how long the race is. The longer the race, I might, start with non-caffeinated option and really know my body that I might be struggling after 20 hours and I'm going to need that extra boost. But for Western states, assuming that, my previous finishes were around, around 20 hours or a little bit less, I take an approach of very consistent delivery of caffeine. Again, coming from Racting energy drink, with Summit tea, and I try not to overdo it. So I want enough just to be alert, to make good decisions. I don't really want it to be too, hyped up on having, 200 milligrams of caffeine. I'm not running, a track race here. I really just want to make sure that I continue to, the purpose of caffeine for me throughout Western states is to keep me alert and to allow me to make good decisions. And for my perceived effort to feel a little bit less than it is. So again, it's all about, the mind more than anything else, and consistent delivery of that is the way to, to approach Western states for me.
Patrick, caffeine, you and caffeine, what's your relationship?
Ooh, we go way back, and in copious amounts, which I have trouble controlling. Yeah, I'm a home cold brew guy, so I drink quite a bit of it.
Let's give a shout
In
out to Perk Coffee right now too, because I know that Perk Coffee's your boys back there. So yeah.
Yeah, those are my boys, about a kilometer from my house, straight down the road. My buddy Philip. So if you haven't tried Perk, check it out. They've worked in collaboration with us at Goo a little bit with hosting some group runs. So, but yeah, I like to get my run started much like my day, where hour one, I drink a bottle of Summit tea. That's kind of been my standard in hundreds for a long time. But hour two, much like Magda, I don't want to be jittery. Hour two, I'll back off the strawberry hibiscus, and I'll kind of alter that every other hour. In a race like Western States, where this event can take you 24 to 30 hours, I would recommend every 6 hours or so, when you're kind of down in the dregs, take something like the Goo cold brew gel. Me and Magda had planned to take no more than 4 of those, although I wanted to take like 8 of them at last year's Western States. I took 1 every quarter of the race, and I found that it kind of propped me up a bit, and took me out of that area where I was starting to get a little foggy. I was starting to kind of get in my own head a bit. It's a bit of a distraction for me as well, of like, I'm a normal functioning human being again. I had some caffeine because that's part of my everyday life. But be careful with caffeine in a race. This is my main advice to those that don't drink coffee in their regular everyday life. Don't do too much of it, and try to time it for those moments when you feel like you really need an external stimuli. So.
Yeah, and for folks that don't know out in the audience, our cold brew has 70 milligrams of caffeine per 100 calories, just as you start factoring your calories and milligrams of caffeine in.
Yeah, don't take 3 of those an hour, right? Like, don't take 3 of those an hour. Yeah, that's bad news.
I have our time. We're like running up against time a little bit here, so I have so much I want to talk to you about. The other question, though, and I'm going to start with you, Magda. Heat mitigation. Do you have any tricks or tips to share with our audience of how they could manage the oven-like heat of a Western States?
Right. So I'm a huge believer in preparing ahead of time. So having a protocol where you can prepare for the heat. So heat training leading up, minimum of 10 to 14 days prior to the race. So we're in it kind of right now, and it starts for me with passive exposure to heat, to actually exercising in a heat, whether you put layers on, to as far as finishing a run and sitting in a sauna for 30 minutes at a time. So it's a progression. So I start with exposure to actually active exercising in a heat. And then on race day, one is, make sure that you're starting with really cool core temperature. So don't overheat prior to starting the race. When I was first asked, after my first Western States, how I managed that, the way I summarized that basically my first Western States, I was a carrier. I was a Sherpa of ice from aid station to aid station. That is exactly like how I got through the race. I'm like, you just got to carry ice from one aid station to the next. And my crew did an amazing job of loading me with ice, whether it was, to keep it on my body, to keep it in my hands, to keep it on my wrists, or, making sure that my nutrition was starting frozen. A great trick that I've been using lately on hot days, I freeze liquid energy and take it with me, and I start, holding it in your hand. That does contribute to bringing core temperature down. So it's not one thing; it's multifactorial, and really just align with your crew on putting that on them, so you don't have to, overthink it and analyze it. And that is something that, has really helped me feel comfortable and keep my core temperature down to some degree.
Are you, when you're transporting that ice between aid station to aid station, is that in pantyhose, like the ice socks? Is that how you're doing it? Do you have a different technique?
It's in my bandana, it's in my
Yeah.
head, and it's also in my hydration pack. So I wear a pack when I run, but I don't really have much in it because I only have 2 water bottles, and the rest of it is just throw some ice in, in whatever packets I have, and I will just grab those as I move away from the aid station, and one, it's like putting it in your mouth, holding it in your hand, applying it on your wrist, even just applying it on your forehead, like having access to that whenever you start to feel hot, it really improves, your comfort zone. And that's, a huge step in just feeling like you're not overheating is already a performance boost.
Yeah. Patrick, what are your tips to get through the heat?
Couldn't agree more on from an exposure standpoint with Magda. Uh, it's impossible for me to not get long-term heat adaptations where I live, given how hot it gets as early as March here. So
Yeah.
most of my days are in hot weather. I don't train in the mornings either, really. So I'm pretty much always in hot weather, but I believe strongly in Magda's theorem of the last 10 to 14 days, with backing off in the final 4, 5, 6 days before your
Mm-hmm.
race. Get those heat adaptations. When it comes to topical cooling, I focus on 3 different apparatus: a bandana sewn at the bottom, packed with about 2 pounds of ice for around my neck. I have another apparatus that Hoka has made for us, where I can store about 3/4 of a pound of ice on the back of my head that flows into a buff. So it's really nice. It sits right on your occipital bone. So at all times, I'm carrying almost 3 pounds of ice heading out of an aid station for an event like this. I also really like arm sleeves. And on this course, if you could wear a white arm sleeve that you could soak in every stream crossing and pull it back up, even drop some cubes of ice down into these little topical cooling centers. It's all about thermoregulation for an event like this, or like Javelin 100.
Right.
And I encourage you to carry the extra 2 or 3 pounds of ice to mitigate the need to slow down a lot or stop to cool
Yeah.
off. It's always worth it. To me, ultra running is not about being ultra light as much as it is about properly focusing on the things that help you get to the finish line the most efficiently.
Yeah, there's
No
so much
shortcuts. Yeah.
crossover between our disciplines of heat mitigation. I wore sun sleeves a week ago out in Kansas. I put my ice right here on my wrist because I have issues, but I'm really jealous of this little ice flap thing that you've got going on the back of your head. Sounds like I may need to talk to somebody, see if I could get that to attach to my bike helmet, you know?
Magda wore it at MDS at Marathon des Sables when she
Mm-hmm.
won. I wore it every year at Javelin 100. It's been killer. It's a really nice creation. So.
All right. So in the effort to not take up your whole night, you two, because I could chat with both of you forever, let's go into my little speed round of questions here. So I'm going to start with you, Magda. Is there a moment or a time of day or a particular part of the course, beside crossing the finish line, that you are most looking forward to as veterans? You both know the course really well. Go
The
ahead, Magda.
river. I
The
love the
river.
river. I mean, it's, for so many reasons. If we get to cross it and actually get in the water, which I think we will, it's just the most refreshing thing. And if you don't, you're on a boat with AJ. So it's nice to have that, like whoever is transporting you, you like make a connection with that person in a
Yeah.
very vulnerable state.
What mile, for those that don't know, what mile is that? Just to give some context.
Yeah, you're literally 80 miles, 78, 80 miles into the race.
Yeah, and
78. Yeah.
I have a very vivid memory from your 2015 win of an awesome photo of you using the rope coming across the river in your little fedora hat, getting ready to tackle the end of the course. What about you, Patrick? What moment or time of day or piece of the course are you looking forward to? You've mentioned the devil's thumb a couple times. I'm not sure what kind of relationship you have with the thumb, but sorry.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to the devil's thumb, other than my relationship with it is hiking up it very slowly and not running a step. That's my relationship with Devil's Thumb. I do like hiking, so that will be fun. But I'm looking most forward to when it gets really, really blistering hot at any section on the course. That's kind of my skill set, and when I feel like I know how to not overreach in those sections, I especially am looking forward to probably mile 73 to the finish. That's kind of my section where I don't have much more climbing, and I can really roll. I'm a flatlander, so I look forward to that exposed, dusty section along the river and hopping in the water and then climbing out for sure. So, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so do you guys change? This was a question I asked Tim and Keely, and a couple of people have asked, do you change shoes or socks throughout? And I'm going to start with you, Patrick.
No. One pair of shoes, one pair of socks, for sure. I've never changed them.
Okay.
Yes, I do, and only because my husband makes me. He's like, you're gonna feel so much better. You just got out of the river. I'm like, I don't have time. So we always have this back and forth, and I end up every time I change my shoes and socks, and it always feels great. But I always give up a few minutes.
Oh, okay. Now, is there a part of the course as veterans that worries or scares you the most? Patrick, I think I know your answer, maybe. But Magda, is there a part of the course that like gives you a little trepidation?
Not part of the course. This year, I'm just more concerned that I have a lot more hair because I didn't get a haircut, that I might just get too hot.
I know the feeling. Yeah.
It's like so much longer. I'm like, wow, I might overheat. So.
Okay, Patrick?
The high country is probably the most intimidating section for me because it is slightly more technical than the rest, but not really East Coast technical. We're pretty rocky over here. Overreaching from Robinson Flat, which is mile 30, to mile 44, there's a 14-mile descent. And like Magda had highlighted earlier, if you're not in control and running your race, that's the best place to overreach. I like to think I'm pretty in control of when I run hundreds, like to not overreach. So it's a section that a lot of really good runners ruin themselves on during the race, and you have to be on your toes heading out of there on that descent.
Yeah. Okay. Back to nutrition. The dinner the night before, do you have like a standard dinner? And then with a 5 a.m., I think, start or 6 a.m. start, do you do breakfast, and when do you eat breakfast in the lead up to the start? That's so early. So Patrick, I'm going to start with you. Dinner and then breakfast.
Yeah, sure. I've tried to go low gluten consumption the night before, and more recently I've reintroduced it. It doesn't bother me so much anymore. If I'm in Sweden, I do potatoes and fish, whatever their local products are. If I'm in my camper driving up 100 up the road, I'll have some ravioli and broccoli. I won't really do meat. I'll do like a vegan protein the night before of some sort. But yeah, probably a vegan protein and a little bit of light gluten and like ravioli and some good fresh vegetables. And then the morning, I eat breakfast at 2. So I always eat breakfast like 3 hours before 100 starts. I do like a nice cup of oats, some nut butter, a banana, go back to sleep, wake back up, and an hour before I have another nice tall coconut water with a banana and a stroopwafel with some nut butter. So I kind of have 2 phased out breakfasts, and definitely coffee.
Yeah. So I mean that's interesting. I've never heard the 2-phase breakfast before. I like that. So you're probably putting in anywhere between what, like 300 to 500 ish calories, somewhere in that range, maybe.
Probably 6 to 7. With 2 bananas, kind of a disposable container of oats, like that Bob's Red Mill stuff.
Yeah.
A stroop, and then I'll always eat a stroop on the starting line for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. So. Magda, your turn. Dinner and breakfast.
Yeah, I keep my dinner pretty consistent. I usually do, especially when I have access to actually making my own food. Starting with like a rice bowl, that's kind of what, a rice bowl, and then I just keep it really simple. So lots of carbs from some kind of a grain, and I try to keep the grain really simple, not to get creative. So white rice sounds great, and then put avocado on it, I poach some eggs or have some fish, and I go really low on vegetables leading up to the race, just to kind of minimize. And it's really hard for me. Minimize the fiber, increase, lean protein and mostly carbs, and some a little bit good healthy fats. But it's the hardest thing for me to do is to get rid of vegetables because I'm a big veggie. So it's a compromise, but I do it because you don't want to be dealing with a lot of other stuff the morning of the race. So, and in the morning, just like Patrick said, I also do kind of back-to-back breakfast. 3 hours before I have a larger breakfast, I will definitely start with like toast and eggs or toast and avocado, coffee, start hydrating as well. So I'll do a tab and start, getting hydration in. And then switch over to something really quick where I can do like a stroopwafel and some almond butter, and then continue to snack till before.
Yeah.
My last bit, the night before, I always do a big half a bag of chips with an avocado too. And usually the other half of that bag, like around lunch the day before too. Like potato-based carbohydrates, really salty with a couple avocados the day before, kind of load up on that fat. I agree on Magda too. I forgot about how much avocado I liked the day before.
Yeah. Hey, Pringles, if you're listening, I got an athlete for you right here. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, last thing before we wrap it up here, if you had a piece of advice for a new ultra runner, a newcomer to the sport, what would be your piece of advice to them? I'm going to start with you, Patrick.
Stay present and just stick to your plan and treat your crew well.
Very good advice. You need to treat your crew well, for sure. Be kind. Yep. Magda?
Yeah, definitely, definitely be nice to your crew. It's, for some of us who have crewed, it's harder than what we're doing. Always say thank you. Every aid station. But I like to, my advice is to really, live in a moment, like ask yourself, like, why you're doing it when it gets tough. Because there will be tough moments no matter what. And if you really know your why going into the race, it's going to get you through some of the really hard, dark times, and a lot easier to come out of them. And know that you chose to do this because you love it. No one is making you do it.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, there is so much love right now coming through the comments for both of you. Everybody's cheering for you guys.
Thank y'all.
Cheering you on. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving up an hour of your time tonight to chat with me.
Of course.
And I am so excited. I'm embarrassed to say that this is going to be my first Western States ever.
Don't be embarrassed.
I can't wait to be out there and screaming and cheering for both of you guys. Like, it just fills my heart up. And I'm just going to say one thing, Patrick, top five. We're going to say that mantra.
All right.
Right? But thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with the GOO endurance audience here. You guys have shared some like sage nutritional training, just sort of mental tips and tricks, all of that with folks. And I wish you well as you go into your final days of preparation for Western States.
Thank you.
And I really look forward to seeing you guys at Olympic Village at dawn on the 26th.
It's going to be beautiful.
Can't wait to see you, Yuri.
Yep.
Can't wait to see all of you.
Yeah.
You too, Magda.
All right, you guys.
I
Ciao.
know.
See you, man.
Thank you.
Bye.